people who are not scared of you. Like my sisters, they're not scared of me. They don't care how many degrees I get. I got some people from Macon, they're not scared of me. Okay, they put you in your place. And partly what I always get concerned about, that's what's happening in our community, is that we are not using the village to help raise us up. We are afraid of sharing with people when they're deviating down the wrong path. So pick your dream team, pick your personal board of advisors, and jump on the bandwagon with them and allow them to jump on the bandwagon with you. Dr. Abernathy.
Yes, ma'am.
I have, of course, I'm very familiar with GMOs and have been challenged with both sides. And so I would just like for you to ask us, to help us think through, how do we balance the challenge of the growing population and the need to prevent poverty and starvation in the nation? Because as you know, on the other side, people will tell you that we moved to this genetically modified organism or this process such that we could increase our food supply to address the growing population, so that we could create these products that will be immune to some of the natural predators that the tomatoes and corn and rice would be exposed to. So how do we balance that? Where do we look for the alternative if we're going to step away from GMOs in our food supply?
Well, I think that we need to first go back to what was good for our grandparents. Just basic eating. Our parents used to eat on farms, just natural, what today is called organic food is just regular food that your grandmama used to eat on the farm. And so I suggest to you that we go back to the basics. Sometimes you have to go back in order to go forward. I suggest to you young people, it's very important that you understand that you need to read the labels on the foods that you eat. You need to take seriously note of what you put into your bodies, because it has a long-term effect on the quality of life that you live. How do we live in a society where everywhere we go, there's constantly, everywhere you look around, through the fast food chains, the restaurants, and in the grocery stores, genetically modified foods? How many of you would eat genetically modified foods if you knew you were eating them? How many of you wouldn't? Okay, so then knowledge is power. So then you have to empower yourself and empower your family, empower your parents, empower your cousins and your uncles and your aunts to the knowledge first that you're eating genetically modified. Very expensive, but also my favorite grocery store is Trader Joe's. And it's not expensive. And everything in Trader Joe's is guaranteed, if it has the Trader Joe name on it, to be non-GMO. Whole Foods has announced 2 years ago that by 2017, that everything in their grocery store will be marked GMO or non-GMO. That is a huge step in the right direction. And as I speak to you today, the FDA is changing the labeling laws. And under an initiative by Michelle Obama, our First Lady, to update the content and nutritional facts label to consumers. What we'd like to do is to include in that GMOs, so that it would make it more easier or more easily recognizable to you as to when you're eating genetically modified foods. That's the biggest problem, is you don't know when you're eating them. Secondly, I read the labels of everything I eat. Every piece of candy I put in my mouth. Every drink that I consume. I read the label. And so if I see labels with words on them that I can't pronounce, I don't put that in my body. I'd rather drink water. If I drink orange juice and look on the back and it's got a lot of different things in it that I can't pronounce, I don't drink that orange juice. And so what I suggest to you as young people, it's critically important that you're intelligent, you're smart, read the labels on the food that you put into your body, number one. Number two, press your local governments to label the food in this nation so that you can make an intelligent and an informed decision. And number three, I suggest to you that there are ways of eating natural food without it costing a lot of money. And you're young, you're intelligent, let's figure out creative ways to do that. For example, everything that's organic is not expensive, but there are non-GMO foods that are not organic. So you don't have to eat organic in order to stay away from genetically modified organisms. You just have to watch the labels and watch what you're consuming in your body to avoid the GMOs.
Thank you. And I want to point something out for you all of the importance of having an African American male sitting at the table having a discussion about GMOs. There's something called cognitive diversity. You all know what that is? Cognitive diversity is when you have people sitting around the table from different backgrounds and different experiences. They all have, let's say, an equal level of academic knowledge. But when I have somebody sitting at the table who may be a Nobel laureate scholar from England, or somebody who's been trained at Harvard, or somebody who has a PhD though, whose father was a part of the civil rights movement, they all got the same academic knowledge. But when I put a problem in front of them, the solution that's gonna come out of there is gonna be much different than if I only had white males from Harvard sitting down solving the same problem. And what they bring to the table is something called cognitive diversity. Because see, Dr. Abernathy is gonna bring a different perspective on how he would solve that same problem. Same academic knowledge, but he's gonna bring the life experiences. He's gonna bring the experiences of his father, he's gonna bring the experiences of his grandfather. Because he understands what happens when we don't have a voice at the table. He understands that when they start to put GMOs in products and determine whether they're gonna sell them versus selling the non-GMO product, which community do you think they're gonna put the GMO products in first? Okay, so that's what I want you all to understand in the diversity of this panel that we have here, is that we're bringing you different voices because we need all voices to be heard. And I'm so excited to see him advocating about this, because just like our right to vote, this is a civil rights issue. Your right to be healthy is a civil rights issue. And what we're trying to make sure is that you're empowered with enough information that you can make your own decisions. And then when you know better, you do better, and then you have the responsibility to do for others who don't know better. So thank you, Dr. Abernathy, for your passion in this area. I'm going to open it up now and take a couple of questions before I do some more questions. Yes, ma'am, please stand up, please.
Hello, my name is Danielle Carter. I'm a student majoring in English at Spelman College, and I wanted to just thank you guys, obviously, for being on the panel. But first of all, I believe that millenniums from 1982 to 2002 were approaching 100 million strong. So with that, plus the added, I would say, pressures of being a superstar beginning now in high school, being exposed to so much technology like social media telling us what to do. You have to be perfect, ways to get good grades, stay on top of what you need to, be healthy. It's a lot of pressure. Now, I come from a immigrant background, so what I had to do when I was in high school is I did work in an okra farm, so I saw what pesticides did. I saw how my lip would swell up to my nose just by spraying the pesticides. And it took me getting extremely sick despite just wanting to raise money to be able to come to school. And I realized that a lot of people didn't know about this. So I'm thinking, like, if there's 100 million strong of us approaching, what can we do? Because I didn't know about it. I only knew about it because of experience. But we have social media, and it's like everything is sell. But like somebody said yesterday, it's not only about transaction. Like, what do we know about these companies? Because they're not giving out that information.
So, why don't we have, Quentin, you want to address that, and then we'll go with Dr. Shepherd. You can also address this, and Dr. Merkers.
Yeah, I think, it's an excellent question. And I think it's a bit what was stated earlier is you have to use social media and use technology in the right way. And sometimes you have to unplug, as was mentioned earlier, and not be overwhelmed by the messages that bombard us every day. But at other times you have to use social media to our advantage. And so just as you mentioned, the numbers growing, right? And if you're passionate about something, how do you use social media? How do you Facebook it? How do you use Twitter? How do you use even Snapchat or other things that allow people to see what you see, to allow them to be educated in the way you were educated by working where you work? And how do you use the internet and all of the power of information that is contained there to your advantage and to advance the things that are healthy for our community? The more I think about what I do every day and the work I do and the work I've chosen to do and the things we're treating, I look all the time at what we do as a pharmaceutical company. And like was stated earlier, I don't take any drug. So it's very strange for me to work for a pharmaceutical company. I will not put one in my body unless it's going to save my life. I rarely will take an aspirin, right? But what I am proud about is we make medicines that do help people once they are ailing to be able to live healthier, more productive lives with those ailments. But I will be really clear. My focus in life is that people don't ever have the ailment. Right? There are certain things that are genetically or hereditarily predisposed. And those things we can't do anything about other than to treat you well enough that you can live a productive and healthy life. Much of what we deal with, whether it's obesity, diabetes, heart disease, etc., they do have components of genetics. But in large part, those are preventable. And certainly HIV and AIDS has no predisposition. That is purely a lifestyle and behavioral choice. And so I'm not proud that our company has a top 10 drug that treats HIV and AIDS in the African American community, because I wish it wasn't in our community. And that's the leadership, that's the opportunity you have in using information and access to understand why 50% of those people who have died from AIDS since 1980 are African American. That's a behavioral issue that we can fix with power of information, that if we use social media and we use our connections and we use our power to overcome what is a disproportionate impact on our community.
Well, Mr. Roach, we are excited that Merck does produce products like Gardasil. How many of you all know what Gardasil is? Okay, it is the vaccine to help prevent what, ladies? Right. And the benefit of Gardasil was that it took us many, many years to understand the disparities that were associated with development of cervical cancer. And then it took us many, many years to understand the role of the human papillomavirus, HPV, in producing cervical cancer. Then it took us further years to break it down to the fact that there were 4 strands that were more virulent that would lead to cervical cancer. Then we had to do the clinical trials to show that the vaccine would even work. And then finally it came to market. And then we had to overcome the social and cultural challenges of educating our community about the value of a vaccine that would fight against a virus that could lead to cervical cancer that disproportionately impacts women of color. And so it is important that we have those pharmaceutical companies engaged with us at that level. But what's even more important is that we have a voice at the table, okay? And understanding the diseases that they need to be focusing on so that we can start to work on the prevention of diseases. I have the fortune of sitting on the FDA advisory panel that approves drugs like Gardasil and other medications that come to market. It's important to have my voice there, because when I speak, I'm not speaking as a Harvard-educated OBGYN, reproductive endocrinologist, and fertility specialist. I'm speaking from a perspective also that includes being a young African-American woman growing up in the South from Macon, Georgia, who used to use the public clinics for my health care. So I bring those women's story with me as I sit up on this panel and I'm on CNN and all of that stuff. I bring that to the table so that I'm going to make different recommendations than perhaps my majority person colleagues sitting there, because I have a different story. I tell you that because a lot of times you believe that your story is not important. I can tell you, all of you all have a story that's important. Don't be ashamed of it. Everybody has something that doesn't look necessarily like do they know what Leave It to Beaver was? Would they know that? The Cleavers, they may not.
I don't know.
Yeah, they may be too young for that. They may be too young for that. But the Cleavers, or whatever their name was, that wasn't anybody's story, okay, y'all? That wasn't anybody's story. So remember, your voice and the uniqueness of your voice and your experiences are valuable. Doctor.
Let me say this quickly. Dr. Rice gave you something regarding cognitive diversity, and I want you to get that. It's okay to be different than the person next to you, but I'm going to give you another word in terms of cognitive. The young lady asked a question after hearing all of this, and Dr. Abernathy laying it out on what you must do. She said, now what can we do? Here it is. You are a nation of people who are socially, psychologically, technologically savvy. And this is it. Cognitive dissonance. Now you hear all of this knowledge today. People bring to you on this Friday morning in Atlanta, Georgia at the Sheraton. When you return, you cognitive dissonance. That's your trying to make a decision what you're going to do with all of the data.